Hello and welcome to this monthly Aphrodite devotional. Today we're focused on Aphrodite Pandemos, which is a more earthy and sensual side of her as compared to, say, Aphrodite Urania, which is her heavenly and more spiritual side. And we're going to hopefully honor both Pandemos in its own right and also in tandem with Urania, because I do see those two epithets and those two sides of her as being very linked. And we'll get started right now. So first, I'm going to light her candle to begin the rite. And start with just cleansing the space. I'm using some dried rosemary here, which is just my preferred smoke cleansing agent. If you were doing this at home, you could use what you like best. And I dip into some salt water. In my case, I live by the ocean, so I collected this directly. And then I sprinkle a little bit of the mixed incense and salt water over the altar space. But since we're partially doing this through space and time in a virtual fashion, the most important cleansing we can do is mental. So I invite you to get yourself into a comfortable position if you're not already. Begin to let other things out of your mind to come to be present in this space, even if it's just mentally with the goddess. Begin to slow your breathing, maybe bringing a slight constriction to the back of your throat, creating a little bit of resonance. Maybe sounds a little like the ocean, reflecting Aphrodite's ocean birth story. And we'll come together in a technique called ladder breathing, which I'll link in the references, but it's basically counting your breaths up to a certain number and then counting back, and then counting up to the second to last number and back and forth until you're back to zero again. So I'm going to keep count for you in this one so that it's a relatively relaxing experience, but I encourage you to try it on your own. It becomes very much an exercise in concentration when you're keeping your own count. So we'll take one just preparatory breath, take everything in, clear everything out the mouth, and slow breath in. Exhale one. Slow breath in. Exhale two. Slow breath in. Exhale three. Slow breath in. Exhale four. Slow breath in. Exhale five. Then we're going to go back. Slow breath in. Exhale four. Slow breath in. Exhale three. Slow breath in. Exhale two. Slow breath in. Exhale one. Going back up. Inhale slow. Exhale one. Inhale slow. Exhale two. Inhale slow. Exhale three. Inhale slow. Exhale four. Back down the ladder, deep, slow breath in. Exhale 3. Deep breath in. Exhale 2. Deep breath in. Exhale 1. And back up. Inhale 1. Exhale 2. Sorry, even I messed it up. That's our 1. Inhale 2. Exhale 2. Inhale 3. Exhale 3. And back down. Inhale 2. Exhale 2. Inhale 1. Exhale 1. And then our last climb up. Inhale 1. Exhale 1. Inhale 2. Exhale 2. And our last climb down. Inhale 1. Exhale 1. And just see where your breath has followed naturally, where the cycle has landed, what your rhythm is now. And I'll do my formal invitation to the goddess using the Orphic hymn to Aphrodite in the Thomas Traylor translation. Heavenly, illustrious, laughter-loving queen, sea-born, night-loving, of awful mien, crafty, from whom necessity first came, producing nightly, all-connecting dame. 'Tis thine the world with harmony to join, for all things spring from thee, O power divine. The triple fates are ruled by thy decree, and all productions yield alike to thee. Whate'er the heavens encircling all contain, earth fruit producing, and the stormy main, thy sway confesses and obeys thy nod, awful attendant of the brumal god. Goddess of marriage, charming to the sight, mother of loves whom banquetings delight, source of persuasion, secret favoring queen, illustrious born, apparent and unseen, spousal, lubrical, and to men inclined, prolific, most desired, life-giving, kind. Great scepter bearer of the gods, 'tis thine, mortals in necessary bands to join, and every tribe of savage monsters dire in magic chains to bind through mad desire. Come, all attractive, to my prayer inclined, for thee I call with holy, reverent mind. So I've mentioned in a few places my fascination with the balance and the perceived tension between two of Aphrodite's most famous aspects or epithets, Aphrodite Urania, heavenly, whom I celebrated in my last devotional, and Aphrodite Pandemos, common to all, whom we celebrate today. And that tension, can come from many places, but in a nutshell, it tends to be this idea that heavenly and spiritual love are this pure thing, and that earthly and sensual love are, a lot of times people won't say this, but there's an implication that it's lower, that it's something lesser than. And I think ideally we can celebrate these two things equally, but there tends to be that tension there. And not only, even if people aren't saying it's lesser than, I think there's a sense that it's a distraction, or that we can't hold these two kinds of love in ourselves at once. And it is helpful to be able to distinguish, when we say love, what are we talking about? It's helpful to have very specific words, not just for love, but it's helpful to be able to see what we're focusing on at any given time. And that's part of why I like exploring Aphrodite's many epithets, as I have been in these monthly devotionals. However, I don't believe these two aspects are truly at odds with each other. And in fact, I would say they develop each other in important ways. This was further confirmed for me when I decided to take a deeper dive into these two ideas. When I was wondering, there are some people who go as far to say that Aphrodite Urania and Aphrodite Pandemos should be considered two separate goddesses, which just seemed so strange to me, and so not what my experience has been. But I decided to try to sit with that a bit and explore it a little bit more. And it seems that the source idea for this, at least now, where it seems to be codified in a source that's made its way all the way down to us now, is Plato's Symposium, in which one of the speakers says that there are two different Aphrodites, and it's Aphrodite Urania and Aphrodite Pandemos. But as a whole, I don't think the whole work of Plato's Symposium has that as its main thrust. It's written in a style of many different speakers presenting their points of view, and these are developed further as the speakers go on. And I think the main thrust is more that these individual loves that we feel, these more Aphrodite, Pandemos type of loves, these specific loves between people that are, I guess what you might say, selfish, in that they're about just you and one other person and what you want and what gives you pleasure, tends to be a way to open the door to something more expansive and more spiritual in an ideal sense. And that's my interpretation of it. There's a lot to get out of Plato's Symposium, and I'm not going to do a huge deep dive on it right now, but that's the main takeaway that I took from it. And that was the main focus of my devotional last time, is that Pandemos brings us to Urania. And in that sense, Pandemos is not to be trivialized, because Pandemos is an approachable human face that makes this big, expansive goddess more accessible to us as humans. When we do that split between Aphrodite Urania and Aphrodite Pandemos, Aphrodite Urania is the one that's born fully formed from the sea. She's an adult. She's never had a childhood. She doesn't have parents in the traditional sense. And Aphrodite Pandemos is the one who is traditionally considered to be born of the union of Zeus and the goddess Dione. And so in that sense, she is more relatable just right there. We understand what it's like to have parents and a childhood. We understand what it's like to have human loves and pleasures and jealousy and flaws. So in that sense, that's an accessible point. And to have a face on a goddess that means so much and is so meaningful, that is still extending a hand to us and says, I understand you. That's an incredibly valuable thing in and of itself. But I think in many ways, Urania leads us back to Pandemos. I think Pandemos is valuable in its own right, not just as a gateway back to Urania. I came across this article when I was researching something else about Aphrodite, actually, but I reread it often because it has a lot of interesting ideas in it, and I'd like to quote a little bit from it now. It's called Aphrodite, Goddess of the Body, and I'll link it in my reference materials. As both Aphrodite, Urania, and Pandemos, it is undeniable that Aphrodite's concerns seem to be more with the body than anything else. As Aphrodite Urania, she holds together the atoms in the bodies that the gods adopt. Without her pull, the gods would all be abstract, shapeless beings, much akin to the protogenos god Chaos. As Aphrodite Morpho, shapely of the form, she holds together the human body too, the human form. As Aphrodite Ambolagera, delayer of old age, it is she who brings about the constant cycle of cells dying and being replaced in the body. She too is responsible for youth and the young, and as Aphrodite Despina, the ruling goddess or the mistress, she is blatantly responsible for the body as the goddess who rules it. Further evidence comes from the myth of Pandora's creation. Aphrodite shed grace upon her head and shed life upon her, gave her life and gave her cruel longing, desire, and cares the weary limbs, menstruation, the cycle of fertility in the female human body. Thus, it can be concluded that she who so inflames the body is responsible too for its continued existence. Without her, there would be no shape to the body. We would all just be a random mesh of DNA strands clinging together. And even if by some miracle the body was shaped, it would be incapable of fighting illness or remaining fertile or producing young and so on. It is as Aphrodite Pandemos that she becomes a simple, if simple is a word that can never be used to describe a goddess, and a goddess such as Aphrodite at that. Goddess concerned with only the matters of the heart. She becomes common to all the people. She strikes or sends her son Eros to strike any whom she pleases, be they god or mortal, with the shaft of desire. So I found that very fascinating in a scientific level, the idea that Urania leads us back to Pandemos in the sense that, yes, in this heavenly laws of physics type of way, this binding of together of different things and different energies, different matter, is what gives us this physical experience that we have and gives us this beautiful life that we have. And that fascinates me right there. And I also see within that quote another possible interpretation of Pandemos, common to all, is this emphasis that we literally all come from the same stuff, that we're all in this complex reality together. But furthermore, I think it leads us to this idea that expressions of compassion, even if we're in this beautiful, enlightened place, that we say, oh, we've transcended the body, we have this expansive sense of love for all the universe and this love of knowledge and these high-minded ideals. These expressions of compassion need some sort of physical expression, at least in the world as we know it. Our bodies and our ability to experience emotions allow us to put heavenly love into tangible practice. And sometimes that is, physical desire and love between people. And sometimes that's just as simple as, hey, if you care about something or someone, that means showing up, that means doing things to help them and be there for them in some physical way. Maybe it's not necessarily giving them things or caring for their needs by giving them food or something like that, although it can be. It might be as simple as a smile or a kind word, but all of those things find physical expression. That's the only way we know how to experience the world right now. So I think that those are huge gifts that are very easy to miss. And I find that the Pandemos aspect really fits into that articles in Mira Plalis's idea of Aphrodite, goddess of the body. And I want to honor that by making an offering to her today of this mirror and brush set that I was gifted recently. And the minute I saw it, it reminded me so much of Aphrodite. And I want to dedicate these to her for ritual use. And it gave me the idea for the beginning of our ritual today, which is to call upon Aphrodite to bless my common body care items that I use every day, and ask that she bless them to bless me, but also so that I am reminded of her when I use these items every day, and so that I can then show my devotion to her just by using them in this sort of back and forth, this ladder back to each other. So it's a request to her for help, and it's also a request that she help me be more devoted to her in my daily life. So I'm going to share some of the items that I'm blessing, and if you're doing this at home, I recommend just maybe doing this later. Use these items that I have as examples so that you can think about what you'd want to use, because this is going to be highly personal, and the types of blessings you would say upon your objects are going to vary very differently, and especially depending on what you use. So first of all, I am asking Aphrodite to bless my hairbrush and the fact that it cares for one of my favorite parts of myself. I have very long hair and always have. And I've never truly considered cutting it short, even though I don't do much with it. I mostly just keep it pinned back, but I do truly enjoy brushing my hair after it's been recently cleaned, and just the feeling of running my own fingers through it. It's just a calming, centering experience for me. And I appreciate that part of my physical existence. I am also requesting, Aphrodite, your blessing on my toothpaste and toothbrush. And in this case, there's a example of that tangible expression of love that I was discussing. These were given to me by my grandparents, who usually sometime between Christmas and New Year's always give me this big bag of just general toiletries that you tend to, run out of. And they give me several months supply so that I can start the new year not having to worry about replenishing anything. And it seems very mundane, but it's very thoughtful, and it does make your life easier. So that's a simple act of love that I have been given by wonderful people in my life. I am blessing my deodorant as something that gives me a lot of comfort throughout the day. I like to feel that I'm smelling nice. I like to keep my body feeling clean. And in particular, I'm always remembered stealing this brand of deodorant from my fiance who passed away many years ago. And it gives me a little bit of a smile on my face to think of these things that stick with you about people who have touched your life, even in silly little ways years later. And going into that, I have my hand cream, and this is a scent that I use that really comforts me. It was given to me either right before or shortly after said fiance passed away. And that scent just brings me back to that time in my life. And I would have expected that it would depress me and make me feel really sad. But all I remember now when I smell that scent and go back to that time in my life is remembering how cared for I felt. And so I not only appreciate the softness that it's bringing to my physical hands, but the memory of that emotion that it brings me. I am blessing my facial moisturizer, and this one is a little aspirational. I don't remember to use it as often as I should. So Aphrodite, I ask you to help me remember that, to keep my face beautiful as yours. And I'm not going to open this up, but this contains my glasses. And I ask that you keep my eyes open to beauty and the pleasure of the world around me. At this point, I'm going to remove all these items because they're beginning to clutter. But that's an example of things that you could go through. And your items that you use might be different. If you have a hearing aid, that might be a really great thing to use, kind of like the glasses. I considered bringing out my my daily medications, which I might bless privately later, but I just didn't want to go there for a shared ritual personally. But that's also a very positive thing to associate that element of care with a spiritual element of care. And at this point, now after that we've blessed the tools of our body, I want to invite everyone to turn your attention to the body itself, and where you're feeling any tension, any pain or pleasure in your body right now. If there's anything you can do to move yourself into an easier space, anything that you can slightly shift in your body to feel more comfortable, take the time to do it. And come back to that slow breath that we cultivated with the ladder. We're not going to do another ladder, but come back to that rhythm that we built up, letting the act of breath itself be a pleasure, that feeling of fullness and expansion after an inhale, that feeling of release from an exhale. And gently press your palms together. This can be anywhere you can hold them up at your chest, like in a prayer position, or just anywhere they fall naturally. And just feel the firmest of your palms on each other. And just feeling gratitude from any small sense of comfort or pleasure you receive from your body right now. And gently pressing your hands to your forehead. And if it feels good to lightly rub the hairline, you can as well, or give a slight massage to the eyebrows, touching the cheeks and the sides of the face. Reaching around, touching the back of your head. And again, if a little bit of a massage to the scalp feels needed, go ahead and do that. Reach around, touching the neck and the throat. Touching your heart, feeling its beat. And feeling your rib cage right at the top. And I feel a great sense of comfort from putting a slight pressure in at the rib cage and sliding down to the belly. Feeling that big expansion in the breath. Pressing down into the hip crease a little bit if you can. And reaching around, touching your own back, or bringing your focus to it if that's difficult to reach around. Maybe a light bit of pressure, tiny bit of self-massage, nothing intense. And reaching back up, touching your shoulders. And bringing your hands down to your thighs and your knees. And then gently down to one foot and ankle. And then the other. And coming back, maybe pressing the palms back together, taking a few deep breaths. Noticing anything that has changed in this after having a more tactile experience of your body. And looking on it with gratitude, even if there's things about it you feel you would change sometimes. But thinking about all the ways it has carried you through this life, made your experiences possible. The miracle that your atoms and molecules are held together to create this experience you have every day. At this point, we're going to begin to move out of meditative and ritual space a little bit. You may want to blink your eyes a few times or find some other way to ground. I find pressing my hands onto a physical object around me can be grounding. You might want to reflect a little bit on meditation results, any thoughts or feelings that have come up to you in meditation or in ritual in general. And this might include further journaling later on if you find that you've had a lot of thoughts or experiences. And at this point, I give my final thanks to Goddess Aphrodite, Aphrodite Pandemos, for being with us here today and for binding together our experiences as people and our tactile experiences of this wonderful world around us. Many praise and thanks. And I thank you for joining me. I do these usually every first Friday of the month. Sometimes the schedule changes a bit. For those of you that are interested in Persephone devotionals, I also do them in accordance with the modern pagan Wheel of the Year holidays alongside my sister Seth. And the next one of those is already scheduled for March 21st. And I believe the next Aphrodite devotional will be March 4th, but I just need to double check on some things before I officially publish that. So much love. I'm hoping everyone's having a wonderful new year and that things are off to a good start for you. Good night.